I'm Ashton Addison from Blockwest Capital for Investment Pitch Media, and today on the Crypto Coin Show we have Dan Reecer, the head of operations at Wormhole Foundation. Dan, welcome to the show, and thank you for taking the time.
Thanks for having me.
You're very welcome. Excited to dive into all things bridging, which has been an important topic, especially for people that are looking to have secure transfers over to different blockchains and make sure that their funds are safe. And I feel like it's especially important because there's all these new blockchains popping up and ways to transfer assets between them. It needs to be understood better. And I know that Wormhole is more than just a bridge. So we're going to dive into all of that today. But I'd love to start out our conversation by just, first of all, hearing a little bit on your background in blockchain, how that led up to being a part of the Wormhole Foundation, and then we'll dive into all the details.
Yeah, of course. So I've been in the blockchain industry for a little over 5 years. Spent my first 4 years of my career in the healthcare and pharmaceutical space, where I got a lot of good training and kind of fundamentals of branding and marketing. I took that into crypto, almost went and got my MBA, but decided to come full-time into crypto before doing that. And I actually started in the interoperability space in my first team. So there was a team called WanChain. Back in 2018 was when I started. And I came on and led their marketing for about a year and a half. It was my first foray into the industry. I've learned a lot, and that made me want to get a little bit deeper in the interoperability space. So I went to the Web3 Foundation and helped with the launch of Kusama and the launch of Polkadot back in 2020 or so. I spent about a year and a half at Web3 Foundation, met a lot of teams building on Polkadot, and that led me to Akala. Akala was building a DeFi-focused and now liquid staking-focused parachain on Polkadot, and I led their growth team for 2.5 years, spanning marketing and BD. And in that role, I did one of the integrations I did was with Wormhole to get Wormhole assets and the bridge set up for Akala and the broader Polkadot ecosystem. Got to know that team really well. Ended up having a guy that I hired at Akala move to the Wormhole team, and then later on texted me about a role that I'm currently in. So now I'm co-leading the Wormhole Foundation along with Robinson, who I just mentioned. I'm leading all the kind of operations. He's working on operations with me as well, and then he's also doing some of the business development type work. So been here for a little over 3 months. So definitely still have a lot to learn, but have gotten really deep in all the products and the tech and all the kind of internal operations as well.
Amazing. That's a great background. And I remember that first company you mentioned back in the 2019 days. Now, I want to dive into what is Wormhole, and I feel like there's a lot of people that they trade on centralized exchanges. They're very familiar with Bitcoin and Ethereum, but they've yet to sort of be bridging assets. So I'd love to sort of pose it as like a problem solution. What is the problem that arose that actually requires bridging? If you could explain that a little bit, and then the solution and why Wormhole exists on that front.
Of course. Well, as we know, crypto started around Bitcoin, and that led to the creation of Ethereum, smart contracts. And there's been people over the years predicting that there would be kind of this proliferation of more and more layer one blockchains that compete with Ethereum. And through ecosystems like Cosmos and Polkadot and now L2s, that has definitely been confirmed, the hypothesis of those people. So over time, there's become more and more of a need for connectivity, secure connectivity between these different networks. In the same way, blockchain has a need for connectivity. The internet also had this need. I think a lot of us forget the fact that the internet infrastructure was built by human beings, pioneers back in the 70s and 80s who were literally laying cables across oceans to connect the US to Europe and Europe to Africa and so on. Now we can all enjoy the benefits of all that work that was done by the early internet pioneers. And we don't even think about interoperability. We don't even really talk about these protocols that were built back then. But here we are in crypto, kind of doing that process over again. It seems it's fundamental, and it seems like it should be something that we don't even think about, but we are really early in the industry, and we're building that connective infrastructure now to bridge these networks together and allow flow of information and data between them. So that led to the creation of Wormhole. Wormhole was the first team to build what we call generic messaging protocol, which allows to send any sort of message between one network and another. Wormhole has historically been known as a bridge, but in reality, we've built kind of a suite of products. Of course, our first degree user are developers, and then there's end users who use the products of the developers who use our products. Wormhole.com is our website, and you can go check out in more detail what I'm about to explain, but we have 3 different kind of product categories. First is protocols. So this is Wormhole messaging, and this is the protocol that any blockchain developer or application developer can use to integrate bridging into their blockchain or in their application. Why this is important for those developers is because they've built a product, they've built a team, and their goal is to grow. They want to grow their transaction volume, they want to grow their users. And how can they do that if they're on a new layer 1? Well, a lot of it is to tap into existing user bases and existing pools of liquidity. So if you're an L1, let's say you're Aptos or Sui, who launched recently with Wormhole, they're also going to be working with a lot of users they're trying to pull over from the Ethereum ecosystem, or maybe pull over from Solana, for example. And that's what Wormhole messaging enables. There's also bridges built on Wormhole messaging. So Portal and Carrier Bridge are 2 bridges who have built a front end, like a website, a user interface that integrates with Wormhole messaging and allows them to provide a bridging application for users. So that's category 1. The second category is front ends. So what I just mentioned with Wormhole messaging is very technical. It's very low level infrastructure for developers to use. What Wormhole Connect is it makes it very easy for any application on any Wormhole connected chain to integrate bridging inside of their application. The problem this is solving is that with bridges like I just mentioned, Portal Bridge or Carrier, you're an application developer, let's say you're Aave, and you have a link on your website to a bridge. What you're doing is you're sending users away from your application. And there's a drop off there where a user goes to this bridging page, and then all of a sudden maybe they get distracted by Twitter or whatever, and they fall off. You want your users to stay in your application and focus on the job that they want to get done, whether it's like swapping something or what an NFT use case or whatever it may be. So now application developers can integrate Wormhole bridging in app inside of the existing application and the look and feel. With just 3 lines of code to basically integrate this widget into their application. So that's been very well received by all the application developers that are using Wormhole, because it's just a much easier way to integrate and better for their users. And then number 3 is blockchain. So we actually built our own blockchain and announced this just a couple weeks ago in Paris at the Osmosis event. But we built a Cosmos app chain specifically for Wormhole. It's not the core that kind of runs all of Wormhole, but rather a component within the broader Wormhole platform. Wormhole Gateway is the name of this chain, and it has 2 primary purposes. One, and the most significant, is being a router in and out of the Cosmos ecosystem for every connected Cosmos chain. So we just talked about the fact that there's a lot of these different app chains and layer 1s that are sprouting up, and it's historically been difficult and time consuming to add new chains to Wormhole. So this allows there to be one focal point for Cosmos, and then any Cosmos chain can connect to that chain using the IBC tech, which is kind of native to Cosmos. Mm-hmm. And then number 2, Gateway actually helps improve the security and accounting of the entire Wormhole network. So we have, at the center of Wormhole, we have 19 validators that we call guardians. And those validators are responsible for watching everything that's happening around the different networks, accounting for how many tokens have been locked on this network and how many have been minted here. historically, those validators were doing that accounting on their own. Now all that is being done on chain using Wormhole Gateway. It helps with the accounting process for these validators. And then the second security feature that it allows is called Governor. And this essentially limits the amount of assets that can flow from one network to another to avoid major incidents happening. If someone were to find a bug on, let's say, Aptos and wanted to send $1 billion worth of assets to another network, this will prevent them from being able to complete that exploit that they may have found on any given chain. So I know that was a lot, but that's the kind of overview of the three product categories of Wormhole. Overall, Wormhole is really just a cross-chain platform for developers. And like I said, at wormhole.com, people can read more about those products that I just mentioned.
Amazing, Dan. Thank you for explaining that all. And it's great to hear about the latest innovations with the Cosmos ecosystem. I've spoken to the Cosmos team quite a few times, and it seems like their IBC, which is the inner blockchain communication protocol, is meant for helping ease the transition from like all these isolated silos of different blockchains, as you mentioned, trying to bridge to all these new layer ones that are coming out. It seems like the Cosmos ecosystem is like, if there's new blockchains that are with that, it's going to save probably you guys and other people the hassle of other extra security risks and extra steps to bridge assets to new chains and new innovations that are coming out.
Yeah, exactly. It was cool that we were able to go into the Cosmos ecosystem, start working with a lot of teams, but most importantly, integrate their technology into our tech stack. So we still use our Guardian network, our validators, to send messages to non-Cosmos chains, but then we're able to add another verification method, as we call it, using IBC for any transaction or message going through the Cosmos ecosystem. So it's been well received by the Cosmos teams because they want to see the proliferation of IBC, and then also great for us because we're able to kind of expand the verification methods for Wormhole developers.
It's great to hear. And you mentioned there also about having the security measures of if there's a huge sum of money that's like, sort of a red flag, I guess like they would in the banking system, if there's all of a sudden millions being moved at once, sort of out of the blue, it's a good chance it's some kind of exploit or vulnerability or something's going on.
Exactly.
You can block that. I'm sure there's a lot of people that are probably transferring tens of thousands, maybe hundreds of thousands, but sometimes in DeFi, there's something that like catastrophic amount can move. And we actually saw that a couple days ago here with Curve Finance was hacked and exploited some way in these very detailed hackers, and they started draining liquidity pools. And I feel like when hackers make these exploits, the first thing they want to do is move it to a different chain to sort of start obscuring where the funds are going. And I feel like your guys' technology, it would be something that they would want to use, but it also would be beneficial to have these security measures to prevent hacking and if somebody hacks into your account, that they're not transferring the funds away.
Exactly. Yeah, that was maybe just yesterday, the Curve exploit. And what it shows is just like Curve has been around for a while, it pretty much has had a clean history in terms of exploits. But with blockchain and open source tech, you just have to assume that there are hackers looking every single day for another way to exploit your protocol. And even every upgrade adds new risk because you have to re-audit everything. So the way we look at security is just you have to have multiple levels of security and fallback measures in case something happens and assuming that things will happen. So in Curve's case, if users were using Wormhole, I think the amount was around 25 million. This governor feature would have caught that large amount being transacted through the Wormhole network and hopefully would have been stopped automatically by that feature.
Yeah, that's good to know. And bridges are a blessing that in disguise that we need to be able to transfer assets. But often when people hear about it, it's a news article about some bridge was exploited or something that went wrong. And people know, like, it sort of puts it in your head. Okay, if there's a bridge, one of the main things I need to worry about is the security of my funds to make sure that I'm not being duped or phished, or the funds are actually going to get to the other chain so that I can start using the applications on the other chain. I feel like security is of the utmost importance.
Yeah, security is the number one priority for us, I mean, by far. And like you said, it's kind of funny. It's like the IT teams at corporations, they never get the pat on the back when things go well, but when things go wrong, they're sure to hear about it. It's kind of the same way with bridging protocols. Like, it's great when everything's working, but no one really says anything. And then the moment something goes wrong, there's chaos. So we just saw that recently with the multi-chain bridge. There's exploits, I mean, with various protocols every week, but the best thing people can do is learn from these and continue adding various security features to their products.
Definitely. And I did see a more positive report on bridging protocols come out recently, although more technical, and probably most people haven't seen it, but Uniswap came out with a security report that was sort of detailing some of the top bridging protocols. And I know Wormhole was involved in that, and it was more on the positive side than the negative. I'd love for you to shed some light on sort of what the report said and what it said about Wormhole, and yeah, that would be great to just sort of explain that a little bit.
Yeah, I'll give some context as far as why this report was commissioned and then get into the results. So some of your listeners may have seen this, but I think it was around 4 months ago, earlier, probably Q1 of this year in 2023, the Uniswap governance, so on their forum, there's a lot of discussion around what bridge to choose to allow governance data to flow from the Ethereum mainnet to BNB chain, so that if a decision in the governance is made on ETH mainnet, that decision, the result of that decision could be implemented on BNB chain. So this was a massive integration for any bridge to kind of win in terms of getting selected by the Uniswap community. And through that discussion, there was a lot of back and forth about which bridge to choose and why, and lots of different people responding on the forum. And nothing, there was not a lot of well-organized kind of information as far as how to make the selection, given how technical these bridges are and how much time an assessment like that would truly take. So what that resulted in, well, first of all, they selected Wormhole as the bridge for the Uniswap governance with BNB chain. Wormhole now has 6 deployments with Uniswap governance. I think the next closest is around 2. So we've already had a lot of integrations with Uniswap. But then the result of this was the Uniswap, I believe it was the Uniswap Foundation, along with probably people from Uniswap Labs, said, okay, we went through that whole this whole governance process, but now we want to commission a Uniswap Bridge Assessment Committee. And this was a third-party team of security experts, blockchain experts, kind of enacted by the Uniswap Foundation to do a multi-month, very deep technical analysis of 6 different bridging protocols in the industry. That included Wormhole, Axelar, Multi-Chain, D-Bridge, Seller, and Layer 0. And the analysis took multiple months, went deeply into various categories like security measures of the protocol, the decentralization or centralization of the way the network operates, the architecture, various risks involved, so network risks, implementation risks, even operational risks. So that you can maybe add the report to the show notes here, but the result of this was that Wormhole came out ranked the #1 bridging protocol of the 6 evaluated. A lot of that was due to the decentralization of Wormhole. So the Guardian network, the validators that I mentioned earlier, we have 19 Guardian guardians, and every time a transaction goes through the network, 13 of them must sign off on that transaction to verify it and move it on to the next step, which is to relay that on to the networks. This was much more decentralized than many of the other solutions, and also the security of that solution was highly regarded by the Uniswap assessment committee. The second team that was approved with one condition was Axelar. They're also well decentralized. They're built also on specifically on an application specific blockchain in Cosmos. But then all the other 4 teams were not approved by the committee for various reasons. And teams like Layer 0, many people don't realize, but the entire security of Layer 0 depends on a 2 of 2 multisig for all, if not all, almost all of their integrations. So Layer 0 is more of a Web 2 company than a crypto project, and it's a lot easier to run a Web 2 company. But Wormhole and Axelar, we care a lot more about security and decentralization because that's kind of what we're here for in the blockchain industry. A couple other things just from the report, even just to mention, because we get a lot of questions about security and the measures that we've taken to beef up security. So another thing is that Wormhole is fully open source. Axelar also has open source as kind of one of its prime kind of tenets to live by. Layer 0 is completely closed source. So again, it's a lot harder to evaluate a bridging protocol when the code isn't even open source to begin with. We have a massive list of ongoing audits. These are all public on our website. So internal audits, external audits with some of the best auditing firms in the industry. And one of the biggest bug bounties in the industry as well. We're offering $2.5 million for severe bugs that any white hat hacker may want to find. So we're encouraging people to go into the code, find exploits, and then let us know for their reward on the bug bounty program. So yeah, that's a few things. Let me know if you have any questions on that.
Yeah, no, that sounds amazing, and I've heard a lot about Layer 0, but and Axelar as well. I've had on the show before, Axelar, but I didn't know those differences, and that sort of really paints a beautiful picture for myself and for the viewers. So I appreciate you sort of explaining the report and where everything stands. And I see it that as DeFi and decentralized exchanges and more protocols only continue to grow and get bigger, the security only gets stronger in bridging, and it just becomes more and more positive and more secure. Sort of like the days of the Wild West are hopefully over, and it's like positive moving forward. Have you seen, I guess, from before, because you've joined the company this year, but since when it started, I'm guessing that it's only continues to get easier as other exploits happen, and then they get patched, and the security gets tighter and tighter and sort of more regulated.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, at this point, we have about 2.5 years under our belt, so really standing the test of time. You're constantly learning things. Our security team is constantly improving, operationally improving, and then as we go, a couple things that we're looking into, even to expand on the security set, unrelated to kind of exploits, is zero knowledge. So I'm sure many people have heard about these ZK L2s. Zero knowledge tech in general is being talked about quite a bit right now. One way to use ZK is with an L2 blockchain, but another way to use ZK that you'll begin seeing soon is zero knowledge bridging. This is kind of the end all be all in bridging, which is what many of the product and security people think, is to enable as many connection points, or what we call corridors, between two blockchains to be enabled by ZK. This would be another verification method, so not using the Wormhole Guardians, but it would be using what's called light clients on the source chain and the destination chain. So let's say from Ethereum to Near is one that we're working on. There would be a light client on one side on Ethereum that can read what's happening on Near, and then on Near, the same thing, being able to read the blockchain state on Ethereum. And then the token minting and burning would happen in a nearly trustless manner using zero knowledge. So this is something that we're going to be focusing on quite a bit, is enabling as much of Wormhole to be ZK enabled as possible. So products are rolling out from Ethereum to Near. We're also looking into various contributors who have this as a skill set to be able to continue beefing up Wormhole security in the ZK space. So I just wanted to mention that as well.
Yeah, amazing. I'm very bullish on the Near protocol and also on ZK products, and I think and I hope that it will be sort of a standard status quo of things having zero knowledge privacy when integrated into especially transfers and bridging like that in the future. We don't have a lot of time left, Dan, but is there anything else? I'm sure there's more in the roadmap for Wormhole and what's sort of coming up leading into 2024. Is there anything else you want to mention about where you guys are at now and what's sort of coming in the future?
Yeah. Aside from all the products that I mentioned, we're obviously going to be focused on growing and expanding those products. So there's various assets that we're working with that are highly sought after. So TBTC is one. It's basically a decentralized version of wrapped Bitcoin. They're working with us in a very big way and spreading to, right now, all the L2s. They'll be on Solana and others. So working with various major assets like this and helping them expand their markets. If there's developers that are listening, Wormhole Connect is one product that we can definitely talk to you about, and it's very easy to integrate using the documentation. And then over time, just continuing to add new networks and new applications to Wormhole. The other thing that we're focused on that you'll start to see this year is expanding. I talked about decentralization of the tech, but we're also working to decentralize the contributor and developer set. So right now we have Wormhole Foundation exists. I work for Wormhole Foundation, but we haven't formally announced it yet. So that's coming actually pretty soon, in a couple of weeks. And then we'll begin rolling out more and more new contributing organizations who are going to be joining Wormhole and helping build Wormhole. So by the end of the year, we'll have a very nicely decentralized group of several different companies building Wormhole. And each has its own kind of skill set, whether it's building the Wormhole messaging protocol and expanding and growing that, working on front-end tools like Wormhole Connect, like I mentioned. Another has kind of a BD team, marketing team, etc. So we're really excited about decentralizing the community. And then if people, there will be obviously things happening the rest of the year. So the best way to follow us is probably our Twitter account. We also have an email newsletter. And yeah, you can follow many of us on the team on Twitter as well. So.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Dan. I will leave the link to the Twitter and the email newsletter and the Uniswap report that we discussed and any other links you want in the description box below for the viewers. I really appreciate you taking the time to come on and just explain about bridges, where we're at and where we're heading, and about a little bit more about Wormhole. And I'm wishing you guys all the best moving forward. And let's definitely follow up in the near future.
Awesome. Thanks for having me.